I never thought my 18th birthday would mark the beginning of the most unexpected confrontation of my life. As I sat across from Frank, my stepdad of 6 years, the cake remained uncut, candles unlit. Frank cleared his throat and said, "Arnold, now that you are 18, you need to pay rent or move out." His cold eyes locked with mine as he slid a paper across the table. I froze, knowing something he did not. This house, every brick and board, legally belonged to me. Before I tell you what happened next, drop a comment, letting me know where you are watching from, and hit that subscribe button to hear how I handled this birthday surprise from my stepdad. My life before Frank was simple but happy. Mom and I lived in our lakeside house that had been in her family for generations. The wooden porch where we watched sunsets, the kitchen where she taught me to cook, the creaky third step on the staircase we never fixed because it became our alarm system. These memories filled every corner of our home. Dad died of heart failure when I was 8. I still remember the hospital smell, the beeping machines, and how small he looked in that bed. After he passed, it was just Mom and me. Sarah Jenkins, my mother, worked in real estate. She was incredible at her job, often working late, but never missing my baseball games or school events. She would rush in hair slightly messy from the wind, just in time to see me pitch or receive an award. Our bond grew stronger after Dad died. Weekends were sacred. Saturday mornings meant pancakes shaped like animals hiking trails behind our house or fishing off our small dock. Sundays were for movies and board games that often ended with Mom dramatically accusing me of cheating at Monopoly, both of us laughing until our sides hurt. The house was our sanctuary and our only valuable asset. Built by my great-grandfather in the 1940s, it had weathered storms, both literal and metaphorical. Mom often told stories about how her grandfather had built it with his own hands, installing the bay windows, because her grandmother loved watching thunderstorms roll across the lake. Frank Williams entered our lives when I was 12. He worked at the same real estate company as Mom, specializing in commercial properties while she handled residential. Their partnership started professionally collaborating on a mixed-use development project. I remember the first time he came over for dinner to discuss work. He brought chocolate for Mom and a basketball for me, commenting on the team poster in our hallway. At first, I was glad to see Mom smiling again. She laughed at his jokes and started fixing her hair differently when they had meetings. After a year of business dinners that ran late, Mom sat me down and told me they were dating. I was 13 and gave my awkward blessing, mainly because I had never seen her eyes sparkle that way since Dad. The courtship lasted another year before they got married. It was a small ceremony by the lake, just behind our house. Frank seemed perfect then. He helped with my homework, came to my games, and treated Mom like she was precious. The day they exchanged vows, he pulled me aside and promised he would never try to replace my dad, but hoped we could be friends. Everything changed within weeks after the wedding certificate was signed. The man who had been eager to toss the football around suddenly became too busy. Conversations at dinner shifted from asking about my day to complaints about his clients. He stopped joining our weekend traditions, claiming he needed to catch up on work or meet with friends I never met. The first major argument I overheard was about money. Frank wanted to renovate the house, claiming it was outdated. Mom disagreed, saying the vintage charm was what made it special. Slowly, changes appeared anyway. Dad's old armchair disappeared, replaced by a leather recliner. Family photos were rearranged, with some quietly vanishing. The blue kitchen walls Mom loved were painted beige because Frank thought it looked more modern. Mom tried to maintain peace, becoming the mediator between us. Frank is under a lot of pressure at work, she would explain. Or he just shows affection differently. I nodded and kept my opinions to myself, watching her smile grow more strained each day. 3 years of this tension created invisible boundaries in our home. Frank dominated the living room. I retreated to my bedroom, and Mom fluttered between spaces, trying desperately to stitch our fractured household together. I was 15 when everything fell apart entirely. It began with headaches. Mom dismissed as stress. Then came the fatigue she blamed on work. When she started losing weight rapidly, I begged her to see a doctor. The diagnosis came on a Tuesday. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer, already spread to her liver. The hospital became our second home. I would go straight there after school, homework spread across the foot of her bed as machines beeped steadily beside us. Frank visited sporadically always, with an excuse about an important client or deadline. When he did come, he spent more time in the hallway on his phone than at her bedside. One evening, when the medication had eased her pain enough for clarity, Mom asked the nurse for privacy. She reached for my hand, her fingers thin and cool against mine. "Arnold, I need to tell you something important," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "The house is yours. It has always been meant for you." She explained that after marrying Frank, she had grown concerned about his true intentions. 6 months into their marriage, she had quietly transferred the house into a trust with me as the beneficiary. I would gain full ownership when I turned 18. I saw how he changed once we were married, she admitted, tears welling in her eyes. "I wanted to believe in him, but I needed to protect what was rightfully yours." She made me promise not to tell Frank. "The family lawyer, Jackson Thompson, has all the paperwork. Contact him on your 18th birthday. Until then, keep this between us." When I asked why she stayed with Frank if she did not trust him, she squeezed my hand. "People are complicated, sweetheart. There were good times too, and leaving seemed harder than staying. Maybe that was a mistake." Mom passed away 4 weeks later. Frank did not cry at the funeral. While relatives and friends shared stories about her kindness and laughter, he checked his watch repeatedly, hurrying the reception afterward. Life at home became almost unbearable. Frank started selling Mom's belongings within a month. Her garden tools, her collection of vintage postcards, even her car. When I protested about her jewelry being sold, he coldly stated, "These things are just gathering dust and we could use the money." I began secretly gathering items I could not bear to lose. I hid her favorite books, her handwritten recipe cards, and the silver locket with my baby photo inside. These treasures went into a lockbox I kept buried beneath the loose floorboard in my closet. Frank became increasingly hostile as time passed. Dinner conversations dwindled to nothing. He criticized my grades despite my honor roll status, complained about the noise when I practiced guitar, and made pointed comments about how expensive it was to feed a teenage boy. I focused on school, throwing myself into studies, and staying late for extracurricular activities to minimize time at home. I got a part-time job at the local bookstore, saving every dollar. Something in me knew I would need financial independence sooner than most kids my age. Each night before sleep, I would whisper to the photograph of Mom on my nightstand, 2 more years. Just 2 more years. Like a mantra, it carried me through the darkest days after her death. My 18th birthday arrived with no acknowledgement from Frank. No card, no well wishes, not even a nod. I had not expected much, but the complete disregard still stung. After school, I called Mr. Thompson, the lawyer Mom had mentioned. His secretary scheduled an appointment for the following day. That evening, I microwaved a frozen pizza as a sad birthday dinner. Frank came home late, tossing his briefcase on the counter with unusual force. He pulled out a chair across from me, his face set in grim determination. "We need to discuss your living situation," he announced without preamble. "You are an adult now, and adults pay their way." He slid a handwritten contract across the table. I scanned the document, my stomach dropping at the figures. $800 monthly for a bedroom. Additional charges for utilities. Kitchen privileges limited to specific hours. Laundry used twice weekly only. "This is ridiculous," I said, pushing the paper back. "I cannot afford this on my bookstore salary." Frank smiled thinly. "Then I guess you will need a second job, or move out. Your choice." When I mentioned that Mom would never have approved, his face darkened. "Your mother is not here. This is my house now, and these are my rules." That statement ignited something in me. "Are you sure about that?" I asked quietly. His eyes narrowed. "What is that supposed to mean?" "Nothing." I backpedaled, remembering my promise to Mom. "I will figure something out." Frank leaned forward. "Let me make this clear. I never wanted to be a father, especially to someone else's kid. I did my duty while your mother was alive. That obligation ended when she died. The only reason you are still here is because kicking you out before 18 would have looked bad. Each word hit like a physical blow. I pushed away from the table and retreated to my room, hands shaking with anger and hurt. Once alone, I called Mr. Thompson's emergency number. The next morning, I skipped school and went straight to the lawyer's office downtown. Mr. Thompson was an older gentleman with kind eyes and Mom's phone number still in his contacts. He pulled out a thick folder with my name on it. "Your mother was a wise woman," he said, spreading documents across his desk. "Everything is in order. The house was placed in an irrevocable trust with you as the sole beneficiary. As of yesterday, you are the legal owner of the property at 1725 Lakeside Drive." He showed me the deed, the trust documents, and the transfer papers all signed and notarized years ago. According to the records, Frank had never owned any portion of the house. His name appeared nowhere in the property documents. "What about Frank's rights as her husband?" I asked. "Your mother kept the house as separate property. It was never commingled with marital assets." She was quite deliberate about this arrangement. We spent 2 hours developing a strategy. First, we documented the current state of the house and made an inventory of what remained of Mom's possessions. Mr. Thompson suggested I record conversations with Frank about the rental demands and take photographs of any items he had sold without permission. Next, I contacted Aunt Sandra, Mom's sister, who lived 2 states away. She had never liked Frank and readily agreed to come stay for a few weeks during the transition. Having an adult ally would prevent Frank from claiming abandonment or property damage. With the lawyer's help, I drafted a formal eviction notice, giving Frank 30 days to vacate the premises. Mr. Thompson advised waiting until Frank demanded the first rent payment before serving the papers. This would strengthen our position if he tried to contest the eviction. For the next week, I gathered evidence. I recorded Frank bragging on the phone about how he would either get money from me or force me out so he could sell the dump and buy a condo in the city. I photographed empty spaces where Mom's antiques had been. I even found receipts for her items he had sold, tucked carelessly in his desk drawer. Exactly 1 week after my birthday, Frank confronted me in the kitchen. "Rent is due," he announced, hand extended expectantly. "I have something for you," I replied calmly, retrieving an envelope from my backpack. Aunt Sandra walked in from the guest room, followed by Mr. Thompson, who had been waiting in the living room. Frank's expression shifted from confusion to suspicion. "What is this?" he demanded as I handed him the envelope. "Eviction papers," I stated simply. "You have 30 days to vacate my house." Frank laughed until he realized no one was joining him. "Your house? This is my house. I was married to Sarah." Mr. Thompson stepped forward, introducing himself as the executor of Mom's estate. He explained the situation in legal terms, while Frank's face cycled through disbelief, anger, and panic. "This cannot be legal," Frank sputtered, throwing the papers down. "I will fight this." "You are welcome to try," Mr. Thompson replied. "But I assure you the documentation is ironclad." Sarah was very thorough. Frank turned to me, pointing an accusatory finger. "You knew about this all along. You and your mother plotted behind my back. Mom protected what was rightfully mine," I responded. "And given your behavior since she died, selling her things, treating me like an unwelcome guest, she was right to do so." Frank stormed out, slamming the door so hard a picture fell from the wall. Through the window, I watched him pace the driveway, shouting into his phone, likely calling his own lawyer. That night, Aunt Sandra and I sat on the porch, swing mugs of hot chocolate warming our hands against the evening chill. "Your mom would be so proud of you," she said, bumping my shoulder gently with hers. "You stood your ground with dignity." For the first time since Mom died, I felt something close to peace. The next 30 days were predictably tense. Frank tried every angle to invalidate the trust. His lawyer contacted Mr. Thompson multiple times, with various threats and offers of settlement. Each was firmly rejected. Frank alternated between ignoring me completely and attempting to intimidate me with dire predictions about my future. "You cannot maintain this place on your own," he warned. "The property taxes alone will bankrupt you." What he did not know was that Mom had set aside money in the trust, specifically for taxes and maintenance for the next 5 years, giving me time to finish college before taking on the full financial responsibility. As the eviction date approached, Frank began packing his belongings. I noticed he tried taking items that belonged to the house, small things he thought I might not miss. The antique doorknobs from the study, the crystal decanters from the dining room cabinet. Each time I silently returned them to their places after he left for work. Neighbors who had known our family for years began stopping by, curious about the moving boxes they had spotted. Most were supportive when they learned the truth, having witnessed Frank's gradual transformation of the house and his dismissive attitude toward me at community events. Mrs. Rodriguez from next door brought over casseroles and admitted she had never trusted that man from the beginning. Mr. Peterson, Dad's old fishing buddy, offered to help with house repairs anytime I needed. Their kindness formed a protective circle around me that Frank could not penetrate. On the final day, Frank made one last attempt at negotiation. "I could contest this in court for years," he threatened, "or you could agree to sell the house and split the proceeds. That is more than fair, considering I was married to your mother." "The house is not for sale," I replied simply. He cursed under his breath but continued loading his SUV. By evening he was gone, leaving his keys on the kitchen counter without a word of goodbye. Standing alone in the suddenly quiet house, I felt an overwhelming mixture of emotions. Relief, sadness, anxiety, and triumph swirled together as I walked from room to room, reacquainting myself with the space that was now truly mine again. The first change I made was moving back into the master bedroom where Mom had slept. Frank had claimed it immediately after her death, relegating me to my childhood room despite the empty guest room. I washed the sheets twice, opened windows to air out his lingering cologne, and placed Mom's photograph on the nightstand. Aunt Sandra stayed another week, helping me sort through the remaining items and teaching me practical skills. Mom had not had time to pass down: how to properly clean gutters, when to service the furnace, which local handyman to call for electrical issues. She also helped me create a realistic budget for living independently while attending community college. Frank moved to Portland, according to mutual acquaintances. He never contacted me again, though Mr. Bryant Thompson occasionally received inquiries from his lawyer about items Frank claimed were his. Each time we requested proof of purchase, which never materialized. I found a better job at the local credit union, working afternoons while taking morning classes. The flexible schedule allowed me to maintain the house and keep up with coursework. It was challenging, but nowhere near as difficult as living under Frank's antagonism. During the first Christmas without either parent or Frank, I invited friends over and decorated the house, the way Mom used to, with pine garlands on the banister and her collection of glass ornaments on the tree. For the first time in years, laughter echoed through every room. 2 years have passed since I reclaimed my home. The house feels like itself again, restored to the warm sanctuary Mom created. I replanted her flower gardens, coaxing her prized roses back to life after years of neglect. The kitchen walls are blue once more, the color of a perfect summer sky, just as she preferred. The porch swing where we spent countless evenings now holds new memories alongside the old. Study groups from college game nights with friends, quiet mornings with coffee, and the newspaper. Life continues to layer itself in these rooms, grief gradually making space for joy. I have learned more about home maintenance than I ever expected to know at 20. How to replace a garbage disposal, the importance of cleaning dryer vents, the exact sound a roof makes when it needs attention. Each skill acquired feels like a small victory, proof that I can preserve what Mom entrusted to me. Some days are harder than others. Birthdays, holidays, the anniversary of her diagnosis. On those days I sit by the lake and talk to her, sharing my achievements and challenges. I imagine her proud smile, her hand on my shoulder, her gentle advice. Frank taught me painful but valuable lessons about standing up for myself and recognizing when someone sees me as an obstacle rather than a person. Though I would never thank him for the hurt he caused, I acknowledge that navigating his hostility forced me to develop strength I might otherwise never have found. The most profound lesson came from Mom herself. Her foresight in protecting our family home revealed how deeply she understood both love and human nature. She recognized that genuine love seeks to provide security, not exploit vulnerability. In her final act of mothering, she ensured I would always have solid ground beneath my feet. The family photographs have reclaimed their places of honor throughout the house. Dad's armchair returned from the garage where Frank had stored it. These aren't just nostalgic gestures, but affirmations that our family story continues, albeit in a different form than any of us expected. As the sun sets over the lake, painting the water in shades of amber and gold, I often find myself on the porch swing rocking gently, as Mom used to do. In these quiet moments, I understand that a house is far more than property or possession. It is a vessel for memories, a foundation for future dreams, and sometimes the most tangible expression of a parent's enduring love. Have you ever had to stand up for something that rightfully belonged to you, or experienced someone trying to take advantage of you when you were vulnerable? Share your story in the comments below. If this resonated with you, please like this video, subscribe to hear more stories of overcoming life's challenges, and share with someone who might need to hear that standing your ground can lead to healing. Thank you for listening, and remember that sometimes the greatest strength comes from honoring those who truly loved us.